Hello guys, my name is Anna and I'm a Ukrainian. I have started to vlog daily since the beginning of our war with Russia, and in my videos I try to tell you some stories that I consider important in the context of Ukrainian-Russian war, also answer your questions and provide you with some interesting or important facts from our history or culture. And I think today's vlog will be more like real vlog, and I want to tell you some stories that I consider interesting and important in preserving this atmosphere of what was going on in Ukraine, what still happens here. And today I have met my friend who lives in Kyiv, but he had to move out since the start of the Russian invasion. And he described these first days of war in Kyiv, and it was interesting for me, and I think it might be interesting for you. You know that from one point of view, all Ukrainians realize that we have this totally wrong attitude of Russian government and Russian people to our country, and the history of our wars with Russia, Russian Empire, USSR is really long, so perhaps we can tell that Russia is our eternal enemy. And eternal enemy of many other countries that are located next to its borders. But so we realize that these wars will repeat, and especially after 2014. But from the other point of view, I have told you a couple of times already that I did not believe full-scale war is possible, and we thought this might be something on the border with Russia, somewhere close to Donbass region, but no one could imagine that the whole country will be attacked. And when I speak to my friends and colleagues and all Ukrainians, most of them agree that no one expected the war to start at the end of February, despite the fact it was everywhere on the news. Why? Because this is something you cannot believe. It was very similar, I don't know, to an aliens flying to our capital or something else. We realized that maybe this is a kind of informational war, or maybe there will be a war conflict, but something similar or smaller to the 2014, but not a full-scale war with aviation and all of that. It was totally unbelievable for us. But finally, I have met one person who was sure this will start in February, and that was my friend with whom I talked today. He told me that he followed the news, and like for the first time they had this prognosis, it will all begin on the 16th of February, and he waited, but nothing happened. And then on the 24th of February, he read an article, and it was all in our informational space, if you can say, and he found out that perhaps this will happen on the 24th of February. And by the way, Russians celebrate the day of their military on the 23rd of February, and it will begin at 4 a.m., which is totally Nazi style, like when people are vulnerable, they are sleeping. And he was waiting for the start of the war in Kyiv in his apartment, and that is unbelievable. And he told me like he was watching the film, he was cleaning his house, a very important thing. And so I think deep inside himself he did not believe this will happen. He even drank some wine, waited until 4 a.m. nothing happened. He went to bed, and then in the morning he realized that the war has started. And then, as he lived on a really high floor, he decided to spend the next night, because there were sirens and bombs and Russian tanks in some districts of Kyiv. So he decided it would be safer to spend some time in the underground, in the subway. And it was a very interesting experience, because, you know, this is what we feel now, but we felt it even stronger at the beginning of war. This extreme love to each other, and this desire to support each other, to give whatever a person asks you. I don't know, person you have never met. I was trying to help so many people move out of Kharkiv, Chernihiv. These were people I don't know at all, but it all worked like that. So he said when he spent this night in the underground, he felt this total support. People were helping each other, charging phones, I don't know, bringing coffee or whatever. And a funny thing, he told me that at the beginning you don't know whether there are lots of toilets in the underground, but it turned out on his station there were many of them for people who need them. But the funny thing that for night, all these escalators, they stop, and he said he had to go down and up 128 steps or something to get to the place he needed. And of course it was pretty cold, but people were very supportive. And in a couple of next nights, there were lots of people who brought their tents, like tourist tents, and they stayed inside these tents in the subways to get this intimacy or whatever, to be like, to build their own hut. And this is something unbelievable, because many of you travel on the underground, and perhaps you cannot imagine yourself living in the underground. I cannot imagine myself living in the underground, but in Kyiv, the underground is really beautiful. Of course, to some extent, we may say this resembles artistic USSR style, but they are very monumental. Many stations, they are really nice. I have this habit when I travel, and I love traveling in my normal life. And when I travel and when I'm in the town where there is underground, and even if I don't need that underground, I will definitely go and check. And so when the war is over and you will be able to come to see Kyiv, we have very many stations in Kyiv, and they are very nice, so it might be a separate excursion, plus perhaps a totally different atmosphere, because thousands of Ukrainian people were actually saved by this underground that were open, and there were lots of people working in the underground who did not return back home, and they stayed for months or two, no, not two, but for months, approximately for a couple of weeks, without going out, controlling everything, helping people, providing them with the advice, I don't know, medication, organizing their life in the underground. And I know that they even managed to organize night cinemas, and they showed cartoons to children. And I think this also describes us a lot, like how very quickly Ukrainians managed to adapt and to adjust underground to their needs. And you see that these needs include not only food, sleeping or toilet, but also watching cartoons, playing something, sharing, and all of that. So I think this is a story worth telling. Another thing, maybe you have noticed I have red lipstick and at the beginning many of us decided, like, when it's war you don't feel super excited about, I don't know, buying new clothes, changing something in your image. For example, I have stopped applying heavy makeup, well, you haven't seen me with makeup, but in Ukraine today one book is very popular, and that is the book written by Boris Johnson about Winston Churchill, Churchill's Factory. It is in Ukrainian, and now I have been to the bookstore recently and I have bought one book, but I see that lots of people buy books. It's very difficult to read during the war, to tell you the truth. I only read news, scroll my Facebook and other important websites on the news, but this book has lots of interesting insights about the Second World War and about the personality of Churchill, who was very important and who actually wanted to continue the war because he realized that the fall of the Nazi regime is not the end of this war, because the Stalin's regime stayed really strong and it resulted in many millions of victims, and for my country it was truly tragic. So if this war, the Second World War, could have lasted longer, maybe my country could be liberated earlier. But there in that book he says that lots of productions, industries were changed their tasks into military tasks, and in the majority of, I don't know, minor products, then businesses stopped and turned into military businesses. But one thing he allowed to continue this production was red lipstick, because he believed that red lipstick helps women feel like more strong and at the same time beautiful, and all of that is important for this spirit that we need. And the last thing I want to share, maybe some of you have seen that already, our President Zelensky has recorded a video in English. And it's funny because he sounds totally different, his intonation and even his voice when he speaks English. I will leave a link to that video. I will pin it in my comments. But he asks one important thing: to arm Ukraine now, because to defend ourselves and to defend the whole Europe. And I'm totally convinced that with this crazy dictator Putin, the whole world is in danger. And the countries that have been under Russia, like Poland, like Baltic countries, they realize that we are not exaggerating. So he is asking for the weapons, and this video is quite important, so I will share it. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you like to follow the updates. You can ask me your questions. I'm always glad to answer them. And thank you for your support. Thank you for being with us. Slava Ukraini!